The film begins with a college student named Sawyer Scott jogging on a track. Shortly after, she halts upon receiving a voicemail from a company she applied to. To her delight, she learns she has been selected for an interview scheduled for the day after tomorrow in Washington, D.C. This news fills her with joy, as she has eagerly anticipated this chance for quite some time. Following this, Sawyer heads back to campus to prepare for her trip. The next day, she sets off for Washington, D.C., relying on her phone's GPS for directions. However, she soon hears on the radio that heavy traffic is clogging the main highway due to the holiday season. Consequently, she opts for a rural route and finds herself in an unfamiliar area. Eventually, she encounters a dead end near a jungle where the road is blocked. Although her GPS suggests a U-turn, she chooses to continue searching for an alternative path. After some time, she arrives at a T-junction and pulls over to consult her map. There, she notices two men digging with shovels, who seem startled by her presence and worry that she has seen them. Frustrated with her GPS, Sawyer decides to move on and pulls out a paper map to seek another route. Shortly after, she stops by the roadside to study the map. Suddenly, a truck pulls up in front of her, and the two men from earlier emerge. They introduce themselves as brothers Hollister and Buck and offer their assistance. When Sawyer explains her predicament, Hollister takes her map and guides her back to the highway. As she prepares to return to her car, Hollister unexpectedly invites her to dinner at his home. Although she declines, he insists that it will soon be dark, making it difficult for her to reach the highway in time. Events take a dangerous turn. Buck tries to hold her back, but she swiftly pulls a knife from his pocket and stabs him. He retaliates by taking the knife back and stabbing her in the thigh. Yet, she manages to break free and escapes into the woods. The brothers pursue her, but Sawyer hides in a burrow, using her sweater to cover her injury. To mislead them, she throws a rock in the opposite direction, and fortunately, it works. As darkness falls, the brothers abandon their search and leave the woods. Meanwhile, after a long trek, a frightened Sawyer lies down in the burrow and soon drifts off to sleep. The next morning, we shift to the local police station, where Sheriff Nick receives an urgent call and passes it on to his superior, Doyle. Doyle is informed about an abandoned car on the roadside and is asked to check on its owner. He agrees and heads to the site, where he finds Sawyer's car and a bloodstain on the ground, realizing something is amiss. Shortly after, Doyle visits the brothers' house to inquire about the abandoned vehicle. Hollister nonchalantly claims ignorance. Doyle notices both Buck and Hollister are injured, but they attribute it to a hunting accident. Lacking evidence to charge them, the sheriff leaves. Meanwhile, Sawyer wakes up and attempts to move, but her injured legs hinder her ability to walk. She finds refuge by a cliff and tries to tend to her wounds. Despite her grim circumstances, Sawyer holds on to hope, believing that someone will eventually notice her car on the roadside. Meanwhile, the two men are seen removing the car from the roadside. Sawyer takes a moment to rest. Her car tumbles down the slope, and she hears the brothers celebrating. Sawyer hears Hollister mention the urgency of finding her before trouble arises. Buck reassures his brother that she is too hurt to flee and may not survive much longer. After they leave, Sawyer heads to her damaged car to retrieve her shattered phone. Despite its condition, it still works, and she sees multiple missed calls from her mother. She tries to return the call, but there's no reception. Meanwhile, the brothers are scouring the area for her. Hollister spots some bloodied leaves on the ground, raising his suspicion that she might be close by. Sawyer roams through the forest, still unable to get a signal, and her phone unexpectedly dies as the battery drains. As darkness falls, she struggles to move forward but soon loses her bearings and collapses. In her confused state, she sees a man approaching and asks for his identity, but before she can hear his response, she passes out. The next morning, Sawyer awakens in a trailer, astonished to find her injuries treated and bandaged by someone. She explores her surroundings, attempting to leave, but discovers all the doors are locked. Eventually, she stumbles upon a kitchen resembling a laboratory. At that moment, a man named Lel appears, revealing that he was the one who brought her there. Sawyer warns him to stay back as he tries to reassure her, but she spots a bottle of lye on the counter and hurls it at his face, just before feeling faint again and losing consciousness. The scene shifts to the police station, where Nick is discussing the abandoned vehicle with Doyle, insisting on a comprehensive investigation due to the peculiar nature of the situation. Doyle appears frustrated with his dedication to the case and instructs him not to overanalyze it. Nick harbors doubts about Buck and Hollister, suspecting their involvement, but Doyle insists that while the brothers are troublemakers, they are not criminals. In the following scene, Sawyer wakes up in the trailer as Lel offers her a sandwich and a drink, only to discover her hands are bound. She insists on needing medical attention and contacting the police, but he disregards her pleas. Shortly after, she sees him preparing meat in the kitchen. While she takes a bite of the sandwich, Sawyer introduces herself and recounts her ordeal, expressing concern for her parents and requesting to be taken to the police. Just then, a vehicle approaches the trailer, prompting Sawyer to scream for help, but Lel quickly silences her, warning that shouting could lead to her death. He instructs her to stay quiet and steps outside to meet Hollister and Buck. It becomes clear that Lel is their cousin and cooks for them. They inquire about a missing girl in the area, but Lel claims he hasn't seen anyone. As they converse, Sawyer spots a pot of lye and tries to use it to free herself. Meanwhile, Buck and Hollister grow suspicious of Lel's behavior, noting that he didn't invite them in or offer them drinks this time. They decide to investigate inside. Luckily for Sawyer, she has already managed to escape, leaving the brothers satisfied as they drive away. Later, we find a bewildered Sawyer wandering through the woods, only to be caught by Lel, who drags her back to the trailer. Meanwhile, at the police station, Nick and Doyle are confronted by their superior, State Police Commander Slattery. He feels a deep sense of disappointment regarding Doyle's performance and seeks an update on the case of the abandoned vehicle. Deputy Nick discloses that the car belongs to a couple who entrusted it to their daughter, Sawyer, who has been missing for several days and was last spotted on her college campus. Upon learning this, Slattery instructs the sheriffs to prioritize the case and emphasizes the urgency of locating the girl swiftly. Meanwhile, in the trailer, Lel commends Sawyer for her clever use of the rope. She pleads with him to release her, assuring him that she won't disclose anything about his activities. However, Lel clarifies that they are 5 miles from the main road and 20 from the nearest town. Without a vehicle, he warns her that attempting to leave on foot could lead her to encounter either Buck or Hollister. Skeptical, Sawyer remains cautious until Lel finally unties her. He mentions that the brothers plan to head to Charleston this weekend, and he intends to borrow their truck to drop her off somewhere safe. Until then, he assures her she can leave whenever she wishes and that he won't hinder her. In another location, the brothers face Doyle's wrath as he demands they come clean about the girl. Pressured by his superior, it becomes clear that they all collaborated, with the brothers supplying drugs for Doyle's operation. Hollister confesses that he feared the girl witnessed them burying a body, which prompted their attack on her. On that day, they were indeed burying someone under Doyle's orders. The brothers guarantee the sheriff that the girl is likely deceased and that they will search for her the following day. The scene transitions to the next morning, where Lel is seen cooking meth. Sawyer expresses curiosity about his process, prompting him to demonstrate. He also shows her a coffee mug containing anhydrous ammonia, a substance far more hazardous than lye, capable of causing severe burns in seconds. As Sawyer assists him, she discreetly takes a garden fork for her own protection. Lel warns her that the brothers will be arriving shortly and urges her to hide. As she exits, he notices the garden fork is missing, realizing she still harbors doubts about him. Soon after, the brothers show up at the trailer with raw materials and quickly bring them inside. But they leave in haste due to the thick gas filling the area. Meanwhile, Nick, who is still on the trail of Sawyer's case, is encouraged to spend Thanksgiving with his family. After some persuasion, he decides to step outside but suddenly remembers something important and rushes back to his office to get it. There, he overhears Doyle instructing Hollister to ensure the girl is dead, leaving Nick in shock as he realizes his boss is the true villain. Doyle tries to justify himself, but a frightened Nick aims his gun at him and prepares to leave. Doyle begs him not to end things this way, claiming they are partners, but before Nick can reach his car, Doyle fatally shoots him. Later that evening, the corrupt sheriff hands Nick's lifeless body to Hollister and Buck, instructing them to dispose of it. He also inquires about the belongings of the missing girl, prompting Hollister to hand over Sawyer's wallet, which he found in her vehicle. The following day, an angry Slattery confronts Doyle, frustrated that the girl remains missing and that Nick has not been seen since the previous night. Doyle reassures him that Nick is likely out enjoying drinks with friends. Slattery then announces that his team will take charge of the search for Sawyer, and her parents are on their way. This news unsettles Doyle, who deliberately opens Nick's locker in front of Slattery, pulling out Sawyer's wallet and feigning surprise. Slattery is shocked as well and informs his team that Nick might be implicated in the case of the missing girl, instructing them to locate him. Later that afternoon, Doyle visits Lel's trailer to inspect the meth production. Lel aims a shotgun at Doyle, preventing him from entering. An infuriated Doyle asserts his authority as chief, dismissing Lel as merely an Indian. In a calm manner, Lel points out that Doyle is dangerously close to a barrel of ether, warning that a single shot could trigger an explosion. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the sheriff opts to leave the production site. Once inside the trailer, Lel informs Sawyer that it was merely his boss who stopped Doyle. As Doyle drives away, he spots the brothers and remarks on their cousin's rude behavior, instructing them to handle the drug deal properly to prove their worth against a Mexican cartel. Soon after, the brothers arrive to pick up a batch of meth. Lel hands over the product, but Hollister notices two different sets of footprints on the stairs, raising his suspicions without voicing them as he drives off. Subsequently, Lel enters the trailer and tells Sawyer they will remain until dusk, after which he plans to take her to the state police, expressing his desire to leave this life behind. In response, Sawyer returns the garden fork she had taken, but Lel insists she keep it as a keepsake. Suddenly, the brothers burst in, surprised to find Sawyer there. Hollister accuses his cousin of treachery and demands Sawyer accompany him. Lel attempts to defuse the situation, suggesting they sit down and talk first, and asks Sawyer to make coffee for everyone. He then claims to the brothers that he has been holding Sawyer hostage and forcing her to work. While they converse, Sawyer discreetly pours anhydrous ammonia from the coffee mug and heats it in the microwave to maintain the ruse. Lel boasts about training Sawyer well and instructs her to sit on his lap. Hollister finds this amusing, but Buck senses something is amiss with the microwave. A tremendous blast erupts, instantly claiming Buck's life, while Sawyer and Lel manage to flee the trailer, though Lel suffers severe injuries. Sawyer urges him to accompany her, but he insists he can't go on and provides her with directions to the nearest road. As she escapes, a severely burned Hollister crawls from the debris and attempts to shoot her, but Lel intervenes, tackling him from behind. The cousins engage in a fierce struggle. Just as Lel is about to defeat Hollister, Doyle appears unexpectedly and shoots him. Hollister experiences a fleeting sense of relief, which is quickly shattered when the sheriff coldly turns and shoots him as well. In the following scene, Sawyer finally breaks free from the forest after a frantic run and is relieved to spot a police car. Unfortunately, she realizes that Doyle is the one who picks her up, a man she does not recognize. She recounts her harrowing experience, explaining how two men attacked her on the road and how Lel had saved her and kept her safe. She mentions that all three men were working for someone else, though she never saw his face. Sawyer then inquires if Doyle plans to call for backup or return to assist Lel. He dismisses her concerns, asserting that in this scenario, he is the chief and she is merely an Indian. This shocks Sawyer, as it echoes the exact words she overheard Lel's boss say outside the trailer. Soon after, Doyle abruptly halts the car and informs Sawyer that they will walk the remainder of the distance. With no other option, she reluctantly complies. Doyle leads her to a river, where Sawyer pleads with him not to do this. However, the corrupt sheriff swiftly grabs her hair and begins to drown her. Our heroine struggles with all her strength, but he easily overpowers her. In a desperate move, Sawyer resorts to the garden fork she had concealed earlier and strikes back at him. She plunges the fork into his feet, face, and chest repeatedly until he succumbs, swept away by the river's current. In the closing scene, Sawyer struggles back to the road, heading toward the path Lel had pointed out. True to form, the police arrive fashionably late and start tailing her. However, the unfortunate girl is too shaken to respond or even call for assistance.